I don't know about you, but that poison ivy kind of made me thirsty.
Yep, I'm kind of parched myself.
Look, see that shanty up ahead there?
Mm-hmm.
Those natives look friendly enough. And since I speak 19 Zulu dialects...
Ernest, where did you learn 19 Zulu dialects?
I used to work in a record store. Just pull over here. Good. You wait here. You have to know how to talk to these people. Hey, homies, what's happening? What it is, bro?
Kwenziwa lokhu unqanyelwa ilenze noma
Masimphiliseni ikhanda.
Usho kanjalo?
Shibop, shibop, doo-wop, doo-wop, whang dang, shamalama ding dong.
Welcome to They Call This a Movie, testing the strength of friendships one terrible movie at a time. Subscribe to podcasts on iTunes and podcast services by searching They Call This a Movie, and find us on Twitter and Instagram at TicTamPod. That's TCTAM Pod. Welcome back to They Call This a Movie. This is Anthony Del Vecchio. With me, as always, is Dan Aquino and Mark Meyer. Say hello, gentlemen.
Hello, friends.
Hello, everyone. So this can be a quick open. I just had a thought that happened this week where I don't know how exactly to describe it, so that's why I couldn't really prep you guys on it. But just that idea, I was just sitting around, discussing movies and stuff, and then just a random movie that's not like a cult classic or something just popped in my head. I was like, oh, I like that movie. That was good. That movie being Game Night. Not that has anything to do with what I'm talking about here, but I just realized that doing this podcast so much with all these movies we've done, that my brain immediately just randomly will remember a movie we watched or a movie like that and go, oh yeah, that was decent. And then not any more conversation goes any further. I think just the sheer volume of movies that have been added to my brain is sort of wrecking it from this podcast. And I think I love it.
Okay. Yeah, well, we've done like almost 280 episodes.
Yeah.
Closing into 230.
Yeah.
Or
Yeah,
300.
100. Yeah.
Go
ahead.
I don't remember any of the movies we do, if it helps. This is one of the things where it's almost job-like, where
Okay.
I do my work and I don't bring it home with me, kind of thing. Like when it's done, it's done.
If this
I only
is
have enough room in my brain.
Are you saying this has become a job for you? It's become a chore?
No, not at all. It just in terms of how I attack these movies, where I do it the one time, and then after that, I kind of wipe the slate clean, because a lot of these movies, the only movie that I really that sticks with me is Stone Cold. I think this is my favorite movie we've ever done. I think that's the one that will leave an imprint on me in terms of something good that we watched. A lot of the other movies are just, this is what I'm going to try to make this as funny as possible. I want to talk about it as much as we can, but after that, I want nothing to do with it.
Yeah. So you just sort of do the Men in Black Flash thing after every podcast.
Yes. Yeah. But I think that maybe I'm trying to paint myself in a good light. Like, oh yeah, I choose to forget about it, and not that I just can't remember anything. Like my memory is just slowly circling the drain, kind of thing.
Yeah. I think that's our favorite part of the Twilight years is when Dan has to relearn Twilight at the beginning of each one of those podcasts.
It's all brand new to me.
Wait, there's wolves in this?
Yeah, I know there's sparkling vampires and wolves and Kristen Stewart.
That's all you need to know. You got it.
Right. Those are the three mainstays from that.
And Thunder Baseball.
Oh, that's right. I do remember them playing baseball.
Yeah. Yeah, they hit the ball so hard they only can play it in a thunderstorm.
What? Why? Wait,
I don't
did
know.
we discuss that?
Yeah.
I don't.
Yeah.
I don't
Well,
know.
we'll have to talk about it next February to get to the bottom of it. But we didn't watch Twilight this week. We watched a different movie, which was my pick. And I decided to go back to the well of a series we've done before 3 times, I think, before this.
Twice,
And
right?
Ernest Scared Stupid.
Yep.
Ernest Goes to School.
And then we did the Christmas one.
Oh, that's
and
right.
Ernest Saves Christmas. Yeah.
That's right.
So this is our 4th Ernest film. And I picked what has to be the most problematic one. I went with Ernest Goes to Africa, which I will commend this movie for. It does not show Ernest in blackface, but that's because it shows Ernest. It shows Ernest in brown face.
And I had written down that this movie had some restraint. It took until the 35-minute mark for that to happen. I thought it did for 10 minutes.
India catching strays when it's not even on the same continent.
Yeah, this movie's all over the place.
Yeah, I love that it took like the first 5 minutes of the movie to be both racist and misogynistic.
Yeah, that's not something I was expecting from Ernest.
No.
All right. Well, where are we coming from with Ernest Goes to Africa, Dan?
This movie sucks. It sucks a whole lot. And that's
okay, moving on.
Yeah, and that's without the misogyny and the racism. This is the living embodiment of secondhand embarrassment. The entire time I was cringing from everything, and I was trying to figure out how did we go from Ernest Scared Stupid, which is an enjoyable film, and arguably an enjoyable film. It has its flaws for sure, but that's a movie, to Ernest Goes to Africa, which is poorly shot, poorly acted. The jokes are again incredibly offensive, fall flat in all aspects, and overly complicated. This movie,
Yeah.
Every Ernest movie kind of just boils down to him having a misadventure, but not to the point of this, where there's a diamond heist kind of thing going on. There's tribal warfare. There's a woman who's kidnapped. It's never that. It's always lovable hijinks. None of this was lovable or fun. This was kind of a mean-spirited movie. 2 guys are killed by a rhinoceros.
Yeah, and then the caption is just heads rolling sound effect. Or something it says in the captions.
So there's 3 deaths as far as I know in this movie. There's the 2 guys who get decapitated off screen, and the 1 guy in the beginning who steals the diamond from the tribe, who I think they say they burned him alive.
I think they ate him.
Yeah.
Okay. So there's 3 confirmed kills in an Ernest movie.
Yeah, 4 if you count the guy in the limo.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, with the snakes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So this is a darker movie, and I don't know. I was kind of I knew going into it was not going to be good, because how could it be? A movie named Ernest Goes to Africa can't be good. It just can't.
And released in 1997.
Yes. So I kept thinking, I was like, which came out first, this or Ace Ventura 2? Because Ace Ventura 2, he goes to Africa. So Ace Ventura 2 came out in 95. Ernest Goes to Africa in 97. So I don't know if you can say it's trying to play off of the success of it, since it's 2 years removed.
Right.
Now, it could have also been the script was written during a time when I don't know how to say this without making it sound weird. When Africa was hot, you know what I mean?
It's like
it's all the rage.
Yeah, it's like Ace Ventura 2, The Air Up There, Shaft Goes to Africa.
Yeah.
What's the one with Tim Allen?
Jungle to Jungle.
The Jungle, yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
George of the Jungle.
America had caught African fever. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, essentially.
Malaria, yes.
Well, oh, Jesus. That's good. It just that's the only thing I can think of. It was like one of the written during that time where we'll get to this later, but sort of you can just take Ernest plus this and then write a movie. And when this guy probably wrote the movie between 1993 and 95, all those movies about going to Africa or, the National Geographic stuff or whatever was going on in the early to mid 90s with it, just became the centerpiece. And then it took them too long to actually produce the movie. And that's why it lands very, very poorly.
Well, that and other things, for sure.
No. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's like, it didn't even, as problematic and terrible as a lot of things are, it totally missed the mark when it could have had somewhat semi-successful run. Because at that point, everybody had realized how wrong it was to, do some of the things they were doing in those movies.
I think this probably slipped under the radar of that. Yeah. If that came out today, obviously.
Oh yeah. It wouldn't.
Right. Yeah, of course. But that one movie was made. What was it called? The white guy pretending to be the black woman on a radio show.
Oh, Shaquisha.
Yeah,
something like that.
I mean, that was made 3-4 years ago, right?
I mean, things can be made that are very problematic. Just saying is that this probably didn't get, as you were probably alluding to, any of the press or backlash from it because it slipped through. Yeah. When even that movie was highly criticized, all over the internet.
I'm kind of nervous now of the general public catching wind of this movie because they'll posthumously cancel Jim Varney.
LaQuisha.
Yeah. Which we had considered reviewing, but we decided not to give it the time of day, right?
It's not worth
I've watched it. I've watched all of it.
Wow.
And I made that decision.
Well, I think you made the right decision, I would say.
Yeah. During the beginning of the pandemic, I watched that.
Perfect time to watch that.
Maybe it's time to revisit it. Maybe.
Pull a fast one. No, I'm nervous. I would definitely be nervous of today's culture finding this movie out and like, oh, Jim Varney did brownface and going after him. Where obviously it's wrong. I'm not going to stick up for Jim Varney here, but he's dead.
So you guys won.
Yeah,
he's dead.
Right. You can celebrate, I guess, but I was I was disappointed. I really was. Does this movie change my feelings towards Jim Varney as a whole? No, but I really would have thought he would have been better than that. But you could say it's 1997 for that. That's not an excuse. Obviously, you should know better.
Yeah, everybody's got to make a mortgage payment, Dan.
Yeah, that's fine for sure. I get it. And I'm sure people would probably be more lenient with him because I don't think he had a history of this stuff.
Yeah.
Ernest is still, I'm sure Ernest is still viewed as a very childlike character. And I don't know if he would catch a lot of flack for it, but it's the people who are finding out about Robert Downey Jr. in Tropic Thunder now, going after him. Like, can you believe he did that? Well, that's the point of that movie. But, there are those people who will find out and say, hey, did you know Jim Varney did this?
Right. All right. Mark, where are you coming from? Ernest Goes to Africa.
Yeah, so it was very clearly obvious that this was a direct-to-video movie, just from the fact that I think they might have had 5 sets, maybe, in the entire movie. And also, the main thing I noticed, and a lot of it's coming off what Dan was saying, is that I think at this point, or maybe I've gotten older and stuff, but most of the Ernest shtick just doesn't work in the last 2 movies we've seen. I don't know if in, the movies we like Scared Stupid and the Saves Christmas, is there any nostalgia going on at why we're going, oh yeah, it's pretty good here? Is that actually good, or do we just remember it being good? You know what I mean? Because, you watch Back to School and you watch this that's near the end of the filmography, and you're like, it just, the dressing up as the old woman, recurring character, and the zoom up cameras on his face, and, none of it works well for laughs. And just the entire content of this movie, it technically feels like there's 2 different movies going on. There's this whole thriller in quotes, about the diamonds being stolen and this whole backstory with the two rival diamond mine owners and the African tribes and that whole thing. And then there's Ernest bumbling his way through most of it, and ending up, succeeding and outsmarting these people that are supposed to be, ruthless criminals, for the most part. It just doesn't, outside of all the problematic stuff for obvious reasons, a lot of it just doesn't work. There's no chemistry between him and Renee, like not even in the slightest. And every other character sort of way overplays their hand and doesn't give anything to make this movie even remotely good. But yeah, essentially, I think Dan said most of what I was thinking, in the sense that, it's just, you wish this character hadn't gone out in this way, because then people can go back and sort of, cancel the character, because of a couple of these things at the end of the filmography, when for his time period, late 80s and stuff, camp and, Saves Christmas and all that, is when it really shined. So I don't think there's a better example of decent writing. Like, none of the movies had great writing, but just decent writing and a character acted well, can make a movie watchable. And then you take either one of those elements out in a movie like Ernest, and it completely falls apart. And had me literally halfway through the movie, like, just scrolling TikTok. And I was caught up on everything. Like, didn't miss a thing in there, and it was just sad. Essentially, it was bad, boring, and sad.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, one of the things I noticed was just how off the comedic timing felt. Like, it felt like to me we were watching a sitcom and someone had digitally removed the laugh track.
Yeah,
where it was just like weird. The timing just felt awkward every time. And obviously the jokes aren't landing, and that's probably the reason, but it's just for a director that has basically directed basically every Ernest movie. This feels like he doesn't understand an Ernest movie. The fact that Dan, you pointed out that there are 4 deaths in this movie, which might be the first and only time there are deaths, murders in an Ernest movie. Like, who's this movie made for? There are vague threats of sexual violence against Renee in this movie.
Multiple times.
Yeah.
Multiple times.
And
why? Yes.
Yeah.
Like, when they get to Africa and she is left alone with the henchman, there are double entendres throughout that scene.
Mm-hmm.
And it's super uncomfortable.
Yeah. I found myself really thrown off by the story itself. I was not expecting it to be told the way it was. Going into it again, because Mark, you were talking about this, where you look back at Saves Christmas and Scared Stupid, very down to earth, right? It takes place in whatever city Ernest is in, Florida, or I forget where Scared Stupid takes place.
Ernestland, sure.
but it's a very self-contained story with Ernest, right? And it's a very simple story. He needs to solve a problem. Here, he's trying to rescue a woman. He's trying to fight off this crime boss. He's trying to survive in the African wilds. See, and that's what I thought it was going to be. I thought it was going to be he takes a trip to Africa with some people, his girlfriend, whatever, and he just gets lost in Africa, and he's trying to just get through Africa, and he stumbles his way across the continent or whatever. So I wasn't expecting there to be violence.
Yeah, I was expecting it more to be African wildlife than very, very racist tribes.
Right, and even in the beginning, that's what they show, right? The opening credits are filled with different animals from Africa.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a part where it really feels like the timing is off too, because they did the credits are very similar to Scared Stupid, right?
Yes,
he's mugging in between stock footage, and in Scared Stupid, it's like old B movies, horror movies that he's like reacting to. So it's a very similar kind of call and response sort of credit sequence, and it's so bad. So like it gets you off on such a wrong foot because it's so cringeworthy. It's so secondhand embarrassment, as you said.
It's racist right off the bat. There's head shrinking
Yeah.
in the opening credits. Like, yeah, I don't know what I was expecting here. And I guarantee you, I fully guarantee that animals were harmed in this movie.
You think?
In one way or the other. I can't imagine that the oversight was there for this. I wouldn't be surprised if he actually flushed, like he killed that goldfish in the beginning.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah, this is a tough Ernest movie, man.
Yeah, but again, I think I wonder if the director wanted to try something new. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know if they knew who they were making this movie for.
Yeah, it was a big swing and a miss, and not in a good way. It wasn't swinging for the fences, swing and a miss. You know.
Mm-hmm. I'm surprised it took him all these movies, and then his last one was in the army. You would have thought he would have went to the army like earlier.
Yeah, I'm surprised he didn't go to space.
I was just about to say, why didn't he go to space?
Space wasn't cool at that point, I guess.
I'd rather him go to space than Africa.
Yeah,
that's true.
They could have ridden the coattails of Rocket Man.
I was
just
Harlan
Williams, because that's essentially an Ernest movie.
Yeah, right.
That's what Ernest in space would be.
Yeah, putting him through the paces of becoming an astronaut,
mm-hmm.
and then somehow he helps them survive like an Apollo 13 level crisis.
Yeah.
Or was it Apollo 11? No, 13, right?
Apollo 13. That's the movie.
Yeah. He helps them survive some sort of crisis when the astronauts are no nonsense, right? Like Buzz Aldrin types. Like, I can't believe we're bringing this idiot on board.
Just over in space.
Yeah. Second comes after first. Like, I can't believe we're bringing this idiot aboard, blah, blah, blah. And then he winds up saving the day. Like, oh, Ernest, I owe you an apology.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess Jim Varney just wasn't around long enough to have an Ernest in space movie.
They didn't have the budget for it, I think.
Yeah. That's 100% true. When did Rocket Man come out? Now that I'm thinking of that.
That's got to be 96, 97, I bet.
97. The same year Ernest was in Africa. Harlan Williams was in space.
Yeah, then I'm wrong. He should have went to space.
Talk about a guy whose ship never came in, Harlan Williams.
Yeah. Yeah. He had sorority boys, remember that?
No. I remember him in Something About Mary.
Oh, I don't even remember him in Something About Mary. I remember him in Half Baked.
Half Baked, I remember that. Yeah. Well, that was 94? 93, 94?
Yeah.
He in Something About Mary, he's the guy who Ben Stiller picks up the hitchhiker who was going to murder him at the men's.
Oh, right.
Like he comes up with 6-minute abs instead of 7-minute abs.
Right.
Yeah, that's right.
Unless someone comes up with 5-minute abs. No, 6-minute abs.
Apparently he does a lot of voiceover work.
Good for him.
Yeah. You don't remember Sorority Boys?
Is that a real thing? Is that like an National Lampoon's movie?
No, it's exactly what it sounds like. 3 guys pretend to be women in order to get into, I don't know. I don't remember the reason, but it was him. It was Barry Watson from Seventh Heaven and Lex Luthor from Smallville, Michael Rosenbaum.
I was going to say, it sounds like a Rob Schneider movie.
It's essentially a Rob Schneider movie, yeah. Without the Schneid.
Without the
So
Schneid.
better.
Yeah,
So better.
Infinitely better. And it's still terrible, I'm sure.
Yeah. Mark is currently putting that in our list.
Yep.
That's why he went quiet.
Yeah. I'm writing it down.
Just putting it on
Sorority Boys.
Pulling up the spreadsheet, Mark.
Yeah.
I swear that was on there beforehand.
I was on there beforehand. It's man, out of nowhere.
What a coincidence, guys. Okay, so Ernest Goes to Africa is directed by John R. Cherry III, who directed basically every single Ernest movie, except for Goes to School, which was interesting. Stars Jim Varney, Linda Cash, Jamie Bartlett, Robert Whitehead, Zane Meese, Selo Sabatsane, Frank Opperman and Tony Caprari. IMDb score of 4.4. Rotten Tomato score, no critic score, but 29% audience. That's high.
Yeah.
I mean, it's audience, so it's not that high, but that's high.
I'm curious to see what the letterbox reviews are. I'll have to check that out. I'm very curious.
I think the letterbox reviews were the reason why I picked this movie. If I'm being honest.
Perfect.
Yeah, it's like I read the first one. I was like, oh, yep, that's what we're doing.
We got ourselves a winner.
You guys want to get into the plot?
Yeah, let's do it.
Sure.
All right. What do you got for us, Dan?
All right, guys. Real quick, just check out these two podcasts, please. Very good friends of ours. The first being the Top 10 with Tia. Tia and her co-host Brittany run down their Top 10 list of the week. And the second is the Game Vault podcast with our very own Mark Myers. Mark is basically running the podcast by himself right now. He's doing a great job doing it. He's on YouTube. He's on any podcast platform of your choosing. He's on Twitch. This man, he's the hardest worker in showbiz, as I like to say. Mark, you're doing a good job. Would you like to just do a
Dan.
rundown?
Yeah. So, quick rundown of the schedule, since it's more solidified than it's ever been. Starting on Monday, you get the podcast will drop, and then I will also be playing. Right now, it's Super Mario World 2 Yoshi's Island, but it'll be basically a retro game that I will try and beat. And then on Thursday, I'm playing through Cyberpunk 2077 with the new 2.0 patch that they put in about a year ago or so that basically changes the game from when I first played it. Not the game entirely, just the, it looks better and they changed some ways that you can build a character. So learning that stuff as though it's a new game. Fridays is the Game Vault Pod News Hour, which is what the podcast is now. That's at 9 p.m. So you can go there. I'll talk about the news, talk about the games I've been playing, which is mostly the games I've been streaming. And then we can chat with me and we go, back and forth. You can, be my correction on anything I say or update with me with more deeper information than I've gotten. So it's good interaction for the chat there. Saturday is Persona 3 Reload. It's basically RPG night, but right now we're playing Persona 3. And then Sunday is Fallout 4. We got the Diamond City, so things are about to start rolling. My goal is that at the start of every stream for that, I haven't decided if a wheel or roll a dice or something, whatever's easiest to get on stream, honestly, and decide which cardinal direction or, northwest, northeast, that we will go that night. And we'll just do everything we can in that general vicinity without care for how difficult it is or how much radiation there is. We'll have some fun with that. And then, the week starts over again because the podcast and most of the stream, or all the streams, I should say, will be on our YouTube channel. So if you miss anything, you can catch up on there. I'm even getting some older stuff from 2023 up there. So, there'll be a lot coming.
Okay, great. And we're going to take a quick break, and you guys are going to listen to messages from friends of the podcast. So we will be right back. And welcome back. Now it's time to get into plot for Ernest Goes to Africa. We open on some stock footage of some African animals as Jim Varney gives half effort on a soundstage, hamming it up as the credits roll, which then gives way to a white man desecrating an African monument for a couple of diamonds. Say what you will about this movie, but this moment is historically accurate.
I think they were trying to do an Indiana Jones style homage here.
Mm-hmm.
Don't do that. Don't reference better movies in your movie.
Once found out, the white guy is chased through the grasslands as he tries to catch up to his private plane, but once he hands the diamonds over to the pilot shuts the door on him, flies away, leaving him behind. And then back in Ohio, Ernest is doing a pretty good job of getting himself fired from an auto repair shop by destroying a woman's car, though through what else? A series of hilarious happenstances.
And also very misogynistic about the way he's doing it. You won't understand. You're a woman, basically.
I couldn't believe it, Mark.
Yeah.
When he said that, I was like, oh my God. Ernest. That's not the Ernest I know.
It reminded me of the TikTok of how Captain America would have really been when he woke up.
I don't want to get into that, but you're probably right.
But yeah, like maybe he was like, this is gonna be the new Ernest, the one that gets canceled, right?
Yeah.
Is this like Ernest is like when Disney kids want to become adult actors?
He's trying to trigger the libs with this movie.
Yeah, he's trying to become an adult actor. I have murder in my movies now.
But Ant, the problem with that is Ernest is also a cross-dresser.
He does cross-dress.
Cross-dresses quite a bit
Mhm.
in his catalog of movies. So
But then he also wears brown face. So
Yep.
what do the conservatives do here? This is a real pickle. This is the biggest pickle they've had since whether or not they stormed the Capitol.
You know you're doing something right when you're pissing off both sides. Am I right, guys?
yeah.
Ernest is he's holding up a mirror to society.
Mm-hmm. At a diner, a waitress named Renee is having a bad day at work, made worse by the fact that Ernest shows up. He has a history of harassing Renee during working hours. The older waitress tells Ernest that if he wants to get on Renee's good side, he might try and get her a gift. So Ernest goes to an outdoor market and fingers a $40 birdhouse while a guy in brown face is getting chased by a couple of guys in black suits. He stashes a satchel among other items at one of the tables and runs, but they catch him and demand to know where the diamonds are. Then they are dispatched by another guy and his goons who are also interested in the whereabouts of diamonds. Yeah, this is such a complicated plot.
Yeah.
Unnecessarily.
Yeah. So while that guy in brown face is getting interrogated in a limo by this new guy with a cobra, Ernest winds up finding the satchel and buys it. And they straight up murder that dude that was being interrogated with a bunch of snakes in the sunroof. Ernest takes the diamonds back to his house, paints them, and turns them into a yo-yo.
Yeah. The one thing, and I'm not a snake expert, but I believe that was not a cobra in the bag.
So it does not have the traditional hood that a cobra has that we know cobras to have. But
Cobra
I think
Commander.
there are some cobras that do not have that hood. Because I thought the same thing and I started to look it up. But yeah.
So is that an actual, like a different cobra? Because I thought it was a python.
Was the one in there a cobra? Most assuredly not. But I don't believe that all cobras technically have those hoods.
Yeah.
Most of them do. The stereotypical one does. Yeah.
Yeah. It 100% felt like they wrote the cobra line and all they could get was either a python or a boa constrictor.
It was probably a garden snake.
Yeah, and they just had to play with, like, just had to act like it.
And this was the only mistake the movie made.
Only one.
Unbelievably.
Yeah. It was a 3-foot garden snake and they just zoomed in on it to make it look ferocious.
It's all about perspective, man.
Yeah. Meanwhile, the British dude starts tracking down. The British dude is Mr. Thompson. Starts tracking down who had the diamonds and winds up following Ernest back to the diner as he gives Renee the yo-yo made of the diamonds. Renee is not super interested in the yo-yo and tells Ernest that she can't be with him because he's just an average schmo and she needs adventure in her life. The goons kidnap Renee to interrogate her regarding the whereabouts of the diamonds, but she tells them she doesn't know anything about the diamonds, which is true because they've been painted over and made into a yo-yo. The gangsters call Ernest, and Renee tells them that they want the diamonds. So Ernest shows up. The gangsters still think Ernest is some sort of secret agent. So the gangsters decide that Ernest can be used as a pawn against some other guy named Kazim over in Africa. So they toss a burlap sack over Ernest's head, and everyone hops plane to Africa. Ernest gets dropped off in the middle of nowhere. Meanwhile, Renee gets kept prisoner in yet another warehouse where she is vaguely threatened with sexual violence.
I love that they had to throw a burlap sack over Ernest, but they did not cover Renee's.
And they tell Ernest where he's going. It's not a secret. Why do you have to put a burlap bag over his head?
Just for the joke of him falling in the river.
The wolves, as the kids would say.
They were playing the long game there.
Mm-hmm.
We know he's going to do this.
Yep.
Okay. Checks out.
The gangster named Mr. Thompson takes a meeting with the aforementioned Kazim, but the meeting is eventually interrupted by Ernest in brownface and one of the most upsetting caricatures that we've seen in a while. After that travesty, Ernest finds where they are keeping Renee, so he then dresses up as his famous Auntie Nelda character, who walks in on Renee being held captive by the guard Bazoo. Ernest uses his disguise as a ruse to throw ashes in Bazoo's face and then cracks him in the head with a vase. Then Renee and Ernest escape in a golf cart as Mr. Thompson and Bazoo follow after them. They stop for the night. Okay.
Sorry. I was just thinking, Ernest has several characters in his bag of tricks.
Mm-hmm.
Why didn't he do one of the other characters instead of the brownface character? Doesn't he have like a wealthy British guy?
I believe he does, yeah.
Right? Do that. Because you're surrounded by other wealthy British men.
Yeah, I can't really think of his other characters off the top of my head. But yes, there's more than Auntie Nelda.
Right. Yeah, he has several. He's done Australian men. He could have done Australian. He could have done any other one except for the brown. The brown face is a brand new character he's working on.
Yeah, because he does the Australian one, and I think
Yeah.
is that Saves Christmas?
And
I
Scared
think so.
Stupid, I think.
Yeah, he plays like a bushwhacker, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Why not just do that?
Yeah, he was just trying out some new material.
Yeah. To trigger the libs.
Well, I guess it worked. Consider me triggered.
Look, Jim Varney was a trailblazer, man. He was triggering the libs before everyone else thought it was an idea.
Yeah, he didn't care about your feeling.
Right. Yep. And that's, they say Ernest doesn't care about your feelings. That's what the saying goes, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
That's what's on all the flags.
Ernest doesn't care about your feelings. We know he invented 69 too, so he was a game changer all the time.
That's right. Oh my god. That's a good callback.
They stop for the night and set up camp, and Ernest gears up to go into the woods to find firewood. Thompson, meanwhile, is growing increasingly frustrated with the inability to find Renee and Ernest, which realistically, yeah, why can't you find them? They're not hiding particularly well. Renee tries to give Ernest signals that she's thinking of him as a sexual being at this point, but he doesn't catch any of the signs, so they both go to sleep. In the morning, Bazoo sees the golf cart from above in the plane, and when Ernest goes off, Renee gets chloroformed and brought to Kazim's palace as a prisoner. Meanwhile, Ernest gets knocked out by a local tribe. When he wakes up, they wind up telling him where to find Kazim. So Ernest sneaks in as a woman in Kazim's harem and does a dance with the other girls. And Kazim takes a liking to what Ernest looks like, dressed like a woman, even though he's a man in his late 40s.
Some Bugs Bunny type shit.
Real Bugs Bunny. It reminds me of so much of Willem Dafoe in Boondock Saints. When he does the whole Bugs Bunny thing too.
Who did it better?
I think Willem Dafoe probably made a prettier woman, surprisingly.
Because he really goes in for it,
Yeah.
Like Willem Dafoe, he doesn't have those boundaries.
Mm-hmm.
He'll do it, and he's. I'm gonna go out on a limb here. Hot take: Willem Dafoe might be a better actor than Jim Varney.
It's possible.
Yeah.
Anything's possible, but
Dan, make sure you're secure on that limb that you're walking out on.
right, I'm ready to take the flak for that one.
How can you be so controversial yet so brave?
Ernest demands it.
It's not long before they realize he is a he, but only after Kazim kisses him on the lips, and they wind up having to hightail it out of Kazim's palace. They wind up hitchhiking and get picked up by an Australian guy who immediately tries to sexually assault both of them. So Renee punches him out and they toss him in the back of his own truck. Then Thompson and his goons catch up to them, so they start using a bra as a slingshot and shooting ostrich eggs at them. They get away from Thompson and wind up walking into the Sinkatudu cannibal tribe, and they're getting ready to eat them, but they are then impressed and distracted by Ernest's yo-yo skills.
Yeah, before that, when he first meets these people, might be one of the top 3 most offensive moments in the movie when he just starts saying gibberish, and apparently it's their language.
Mm-hmm.
And they understand them, and I'm like, oh, jeez.
Not great.
Yeah.
He does that early on, right when he meets the one tribe. It's like, oh, I speak Zulu, 19 dialects of Zulu. And the first thing he says is, "What's up, homie?" Like, oh,
Yeah. So this earns them entrance into the tribe just as soon as Ernest gets circumcised. Funnily enough, that is an actual plot point of the movie The Air Up There with Kevin Bacon.
Is it?
Yeah.
I've never seen the movie.
Yep. That's a Disney movie too.
Wait, so Kevin Bacon has to get circumcised?
Mm-hmm.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. People just cutting people's dicks off in the 90s, man. What can I tell you?
Yeah, no, I don't. Is that supposed to be offensive? Because
What,
I know
circumcision?
No, like in Africa. Because I know that was a hot topic with with women, like forced
Genital mutilation.
Yeah. So is that I don't know if it's racist or not.
We could probably just assume yes.
Right? That because it's in the 90s, so I'm assuming yes.
Yeah. Let's just assume so.
Okay. Fair assumption.
Yeah. But at this point, Mr. Thompson shows up saying Ernest is the one that stole the diamonds, and then he challenges Ernest to a battle. So they battle. Thompson attacks Ernest, but Ernest manages to stave off most of his attacks and then knocks out Mr. Thompson with his yo-yo. Which then breaks in half and reveals itself to be the diamonds. tribe celebrates and puts the diamonds back in the idol where they belong. They go home, and Ernest asks Renee out again, and she says that now Ernest is too much adventure for her. She actually wants to have a boring schmo that works at the library. And that is the note we end on for Ernest Goes to Africa.
All that, and he didn't get the girl at the end.
Mm-hmm. Did Ernest ever get the girl?
I don't think so.
There's never a girl for him to get.
That's true. He's usually hanging around with kids.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah. In Saves Christmas, it's a teenage girl.
That's right.
So.
Yeah.
And he's helping her find herself. Right. He's more of a father figure.
Yeah. Not a Drake figure.
Just catching strays.
That's right. So everyone pile on.
Might as well.
Yeah.
I was gonna say Ernest deserves better, but after seeing this movie, I don't know about that.
Mm-hmm. He doesn't get the girl in Ernest Goes to School, right? There's not like a teacher or scientist or something like that, right?
Can't recall. The only thing I remember about him going back to school is Will Sasso is in that movie.
Yeah. And Sarah Chalk.
And Sarah Chalk, yeah.
Oh, so she was
other Becky or second Becky.
Movie?
Was that?
She's in this movie as well, right?
No, that's the woman that plays Renee is in Ernest Goes to School though.
Oh, gotcha. Okay.
Linda Cash, Gerda.
Okay.
Yeah. But that's Ernest Goes to Africa. Easily the worst Ernest movie we've done.
Yeah.
We've done 4 of them. This easily supplants Ernest Goes to School.
And no matter how short you think that plot was, it was too long.
Yep.
Yeah. It's far more cringeworthy than we made it sound.
Yeah. And that last half hour of that movie, though, that's a long half hour.
Yeah.
Yeah, I did find myself kind of zoning in and out.
Yeah, circling the drain.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But we got through it. You know, maybe one day we'll do one of the good ones, one of the good Ernest films.
I think we've done them all.
I think Goes to Jail and Goes to Camp are arguably the good ones that we haven't done.
Is Jail the evil twin?
Yep.
Okay.
Love a good evil twin plot line.
We could do that. I'm sure we can find that.
Mm-hmm. And Goes to Camp has some sort of anti-capitalist message to it, so that's always pretty good.
Okay.
Taking on a shady strip mining company.
So Ernest goes from anti-capitalism to brownface.
Mm-hmm.
He runs the gamut.
He's a man of the people, I suppose.
So
and I guess when you're the man of the people, you kind of have to play both sides.
Yeah, you can't limit yourself to one side, I guess.
Yeah. All right. So we're going to take a quick break, and then we're going to be back with our third segment, but you guys are going to listen to some ads or pay those bills, and we'll be right back. And welcome back. Now it's time for our third segment, and this week we are pitching movies. This week I asked these guys to pitch more problematic Ernest movies than Ernest Goes to Africa. So who would like to start?
I'll go. I'll start.
All right, Dan. Pitch your problematic Ernest film.
I don't know how problematic this is, but the idea that I have would lead to a bigger problem. So I have Ernest visits the DMZ, the demilitarized zone in North Korea. And essentially what would happen is Ernest winds up starting World War III by going to the DMZ and making fun of Kim Jong-un, possibly doing really bad, like thinking that North Koreans are Chinese and basically doing poor Chinese accents.
Like the Krusty the Clown sort of Asian stereotypes?
Yes, with the teeth and everything.
Yeah.
The big front teeth. Ernest doesn't know where he is essentially and winds up causing World War III. That would be my pitch.
Okay.
And I don't know how it would resolve, but I think it would. I had this idea where Ernest tries to basically he pulls a Rocky IV where he talks about if I can love this and you could love this and we could love each other kind of thing.
Right.
Yeah, a lot of just really bad Asian accents in this movie. And maybe some Russian, right? Because they're obviously they're allies. So he does some really weird, like maybe he does something with Putin
Sure.
Yeah, that's my pitch. World War III, Ernest style.
Okay. Mark, what about you? What's your pitch
Yeah,
for
so
a problematic
my first one was a sequel to Ernest in the Army or whatever that one's called, and it's Ernest finds the WMDs.
Okay.
And basically, there's a lot of chance for Islamophobia things in this movie that you can have while he's over in Iraq searching for it. You can have you can go either way and to be very pro military, but in the bad way of it, and things that are probably very, very problematic. Was it advanced interrogation or whatever they called it? Things that he actually he does by accident in while searching for the WMDs, and then the movie can end with him being the reason why they never really found them. Like he either sets them off or lets them slip by, and that's how they get away. But that was my first thought, was because you just got to put them in a location where you can do, if we're going to do problematic Ernest and Africa inspired, this was just a place where you could do some really, really terribly offensive jokes about a culture, and nothing better than George W. Bush's America for that to happen.
I like that. That's good.
Okay. All right. I have pretty easily Ernest Goes to January 6th.
Yeah. There we go.
I envision it's, Ernest either gets a job as a janitor at Capitol Hill, or or he's like, oh, I'm taking a trip to Washington, D.C., and it just so happens to be on January 6th. So and he just gets swept up in all of it.
So he's the only one that's really there as a tourist?
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's got the big old camera. He's taking pictures, and he probably sees someone knocking on the window, and he's like, "Oh, someone's trying to get in. Let me help him out." Yeah, hey, buddy, what you doing? It's just the guy with the Viking helmet, and
and he's taking pictures of it, and that identifying photos,
like Nancy Pelosi's desk. Yeah.
Well, with the Viking guy. I think he do a barbarian shtick in one of the movies.
Probably.
He would do. Oh, he does a Genghis Khan, so he could join the Viking guy as Genghis Khan. We're not going to sit down and take this. We didn't sit down and how we took over all of Asia. Blah blah blah. We're going to take back America.
Yeah. I also have a couple of other titles written down here. I have Ernest Goes to Concentration Camp.
Ooh.
I also have Ernest Goes to the Dark Web. I envision him accidentally buying a child bride.
That's unfortunate. So he just gets duped, right? He's not knowingly buying a child bride.
Well, remember how there was that whole conspiracy theory, what is it, Wayfair?
Wayfair, yeah.
Oh, where it was people were buying children on there. I assume it's something like that, where he thinks he's buying one thing and he's buying a child.
He thinks he's buying a sofa.
Yeah. And then buying a child bride.
Yeah, a Ukrainian kid comes in. I have to get you back home.
Oh man.
Oh,
that's great.
I had the ones the ones that popped up immediately were basically Ernest joins a rally, or
I have another good one.
Ernest Goes to Epstein Island.
That's a good one.
Yeah. Yeah. My second one was Ernest Goes to the Border.
Yeah, sure.
He does he pretends to be Mexican. He puts on the poncho.
Yeah.
And sombrero.
Yeah, it's poncho and a sombrero.
Oh, he has to get back across
the border.
Him trying to and him doing all the old offensive ones, trying to swim across, trying to climb across. Oh my God, that's a good one.
Yeah. Yeah. That was, like I said, I just took the idea of Ernest in place where offensive things could take place.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's Ernest definitely lends himself to these types of movies because of his childlike demeanor, where you could excuse him for doing some of that. Yeah. But
it's a Forrest Gumpish sort of thing, right?
Exactly, right? he attends the school where the desegregation happens.
Right.
No, like he doesn't see the problem with it, you know.
Yeah.
Ugh,
Yeah. And
man.
you could also do like my bunch of my backups where like Ernest joined some type of group.
Yes.
Like you could go to the obvious ones, but for some reason the first one that popped in my head was MS-13. Just because it was not the obvious choice for that.
Ooh, Ernest joining the Bloods or the Crips
Yeah.
would be
Oh.
very set itself up very nicely.
Yeah,
That-
he
that's
doesn't
basically-
realize it.
That's essentially the Leprechaun back in the hood, or Leprechaun
Yeah.
Goes in the hood, right? So he plays both sides unknowingly,
Yeah.
right? He just thinks he's friends with these gangs. He doesn't even know they're gangs.
Right.
Like, he kind of goes back and forth, and both gangs don't know that he's going back and forth.
Yeah.
Like, he's a legend to both gangs, essentially.
And he just happens to wear the right colors.
Exactly. Right. Like he accidentally like blows up a building that has some Crips in it. Right. So the Bloods are like, oh, this guy, he's a legend. He took out like a whole bunch of Crips, and then for the Crip side, I don't know, he gets them thrown in jail or something like that by accident. He tips off the cops by accident. So he unwittingly playing both sides.
That's good. Yeah, it all, as you were saying, Dan, it all comes down to Ernest like stumbling into a situation.
Yeah.
Right. And just how he portrays himself with his getup, essentially.
Yeah.
Well, these are problematic, so
Yeah.
I'd watch all of these though.
Maybe AI could make it happen.
Yeah. So, and before you did January 6th, one of my thoughts was that he went to Charlottesville
Sure. The Unite the Right rally.
just because of the khakis.
Yeah. Right. He thinks there's another, like, he's there for another festival, so he thinks that's the festival.
Mhm.
Yeah, and he ends up talking to these guys because he enjoys he starts something about khaki pants
Right.
or that they don't light their torches correctly or whatever.
Yeah.
I want to say that I don't think Jim Varney is this way at all.
No.
Yeah.
I don't, in my heart of hearts, I don't believe Jim Varney would ever do any of that stuff. But
Not at all.
I mean, the one layer is that he did do brown face, so
right.
you know, maybe he didn't see the offensiveness in some stuff that he thought was being played for a joke.
Mhm.
But yes, I don't think he personally would join any of these really terrible movements.
Yeah, I wanted to just get that out there. I don't need the Ernest stands coming after me.
I mean, Ernest accidentally becoming a legend to the Bloods and the Crips is very, very Ernest.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I could, but on the like reverse side, I could see like Ernest saves Taylor Swift happening.
Yeah.
Or like he needs to get Taylor Swift to her concert.
Yeah. It's like get him to the Greek.
Yeah.
But Ernest.
Right, like he's a taxi driver again, or like a limo driver. Like, oh, you know, like, oh, Miss Swift, you make so many people happy. You have to go on stage.
All right. Well, that's our episode on Ernest Goes to Africa. Check us out on all our socials, Twitter, Instagram, Threads at TikTamPod. They call us a movie on TikTok. And check us out on YouTube. Find us on YouTube where we post some stuff there. And if you got any questions or comments, and hit us up at TikTamPod@gmail.com. The way to get a hold of us as well. If you have 5 seconds of your day, go to your podcatcher of choice and give us 5 stars. That helps out a great deal. But that is going to wrap us up this week. The director of Ernest Goes to Africa is John R. Cherry III. So for Dan Aquino and Mark Myers, this is Anthony DeVecchio telling John R. Cherry III, well, you certainly made a movie, didn't you? Thanks for listening to They Called Us a Movie. Subscribe to us wherever you get your podcasts, and be sure to check us out on Twitter and Instagram at TikTamPod. That's TCTAM Pod. You can also check us out on TikTok at They Called Us a Movie.